Hi, fourth graders. So, we just finished reading chapter 10, where Stanley finds a fossil in his hole. He's now dug his second, or in the process of digging his second hole. And in this second hole, he finds a fossil of a fish. And he thinks, yes, gonna get the day off. And Mr. Pendanski shows up to give them water, and he gives it to Mr. Pendanski, and Mr. Pendanski says, okay, it's a fossil of a fish. But that's not what the warden's interested in. Which leaves Stanley to think, what in the world is the warden interested in if it's not a fish or fossil? So let's keep reading. This is chapter 11. Stanley returned to his hole. It wasn't fair. Mr. Pendanski had even said his fossil was interesting. He slammed a shovel into the ground and pried up another piece of earth. After a while, he noticed X-Ray had come by and was watching him dig. "Hey, caveman, let me talk to you a second," X-Ray said. Stanley put down his shovel and stepped up out of his hole. "Say, listen," said X-Ray. "If you find anything else, give it to me, okay?" Stanley wasn't sure what to say. X-Ray was clearly the leader of the group, and Stanley didn't want to get on his bad side. "You're new here, right?" said X-Ray. "I've been here for almost a year. I've never found anything. You know, my eyesight's not so good. No one knows this. But you know why my name's X-Ray?" Stanley shrugged one shoulder. "It's Pig Latin for Rex. That's all. I'm too blind to find anything." So Pig Latin is kind of a secret language, a code. What you do is you take the first letter off of the word and put it at the end and then add A on it. So Rex, you take off the R and you have X. You put the R at the end and add A, X, Ray. What would your name be in Pig Latin? For 5 bonus points on your lowest grade, email me what your name would be in Pig Latin, just out of curiosity. So Rex's name in Pig Latin is X-Ray. Stanley tried to remember how Pig Latin worked. X-Ray went on, "why should you get the day off when you've only been here a couple of days? If anybody gets a day off, it should be me. That's only fair, right?" "I guess," Stanley agreed. X-Ray smiled. "You're a good guy, caveman." So Stanley picked up a shovel. The more he thought about it, the more he was glad that he agreed to let X-Ray have anything he might find. If he was going to survive at Camp Green Lake, it was far more important that X-Ray think he was a good guy than it was for him to get one day off. Besides, he didn't expect to find anything anyways. There probably wasn't anything of interest out there. And even if there was, he'd never been what you could call lucky because of his no good, dirty, rotten, pig-stealing great-great-grandfather. He slammed his blade into the ground, then dumped out another shovelful of dirt. It was a little surprising, he thought, that X-Ray was the leader of the group, since he obviously wasn't the biggest or the toughest. In fact, except for Zero, X-Ray was the smallest. Armpit was the biggest. Zigzag may have been taller than Armpit, but that was only because of his neck. Yet Armpit and all the others seemed to be willing to do whatever X-Ray asked of them. As Stanley dug up another shovelful of dirt, it occurred to him that Armpit wasn't the biggest. He, the caveman, was bigger. He was glad they called him the caveman. So there was a question earlier about what you thought he thought of his nickname. Did you think Stanley liked it or did he not like it? So this tells me he was glad they called him caveman. It meant they accepted him as a member of the group. So having a nickname was more about being accepted as part of the group and less about what the name was. He would have been glad even if they had called him Barf Bag. It really was quite remarkable to him, At school, bullies like Derek Dunn used to pick on him, yet Derek Dunn would be scared senseless by any of the boys here. As he dug his hole, Stanley thought about what it would be like if Derek Dunn had to fight Armpit or Squid. Derek wouldn't stand a chance. He imagined what it would be like if he became good friends with all of them, and then for some reason they all went with him to his school, and then Derek Dunn tried to steal his notebook. So if he had all of his new friends from Camp Green Lake that are these bad boys, and Derek Dunn tried to steal his notebook, do you think it would have happened the same way? This is what Stanley imagines. "Just what do you think you're doing?" asks Squid, as he slams his hand into Derek Dunn's smug face. "Caveman's our friend," says Armpit, grabbing him by the shirt collar. So Stanley's thinking he's going to have friends to stick up for him. Stanley played the scene over and over again in his mind, each time watching another boy from Group D beat up Derek Dunn. It helped him dig his hole and ease his own suffering. Whatever pain he felt was being felt 10 times worse by Derek Dunn. Which brings us to chapter 12. Again, Stanley was the last one to finish digging. It was late afternoon when he dragged himself back to the campground. This time, he would have accepted a ride on the truck if it was offered. When he got to the tent, he found Mr. Pendenski and the other boys sitting in a circle on the ground. "Welcome, Stanley," said Mr. Pendenski. "Hey, Caveman, you get your hole dug?" asked Magnet. He managed to nod. "You spit in it?" asked Squid. He nodded again. "You're right," he said to X-Ray. "The second hole's the hardest." So first they told him the first hole's the hardest. And then they told him it's the second hole, it's the hardest. Well, now X-Ray shakes his head. "The third hole's the hardest," he said. "Come join our circle," said Mr. Pendenski. Stanley plopped down between Squid and Magnet. He needed to rest up before taking a shower. "We've been discussing what we want to do with our lives," said Mr. Pendenski. "We're not going to be at Camp Green Lake forever. We need to prepare for the day we leave here and join the rest of society." "Hey, that's great, Mom," said Magnet. "They're going to finally let you leave here." So Mom, remember, was the nickname the boys had given Mr. Pendenski. And so they're teasing Mr. Pendenski that he might actually get to leave. The other boys laughed. "Okay, Jose," said Mr. Pendenski. So remember, Jose is Magnet. "What do you want to do with your life?" "I don't know," said Magnet. "You need to think about that," said Mr. Pendenski. "It's important to have goals. Otherwise, you're going to end up right back in jail. What do you like to do?" "I don't know," said Magnet. "Well, you must like something," said Mr. Pendenski. "I like animals," said Magnet. "Good," said Mr. Pendenski. "Does anyone know of any jobs that involve animals?" "Veterinarian," said Armpit. "That's right," said Mr. Pendenski. "He could work in a zoo," said Zigzag. "He belongs in the zoo," said Squid. Then he and X-Ray laughed. "How about you, Stanley? Any ideas for Jose?" Stanley sighed. "Animal trainer? Like for the circus or movies or something like that?" "Any of those jobs sound good to you, Jose?" asked Mr. Pendenski. "Yeah, I like what Caveman said about training animals for movies. I think it would be fun to train monkeys." X-Ray laughed. "Don't laugh, Rex," said Mr. Pendenski. "We don't laugh at people's dreams. Someone is going to have to train monkeys for the movies." "Who are you kidding, Mom?" asked X-Ray. "Magnet's never going to be a monkey trainer." "Well, you don't know that," said Mr. Pendenski. "I'm not saying it's going to be easy. Nothing in life is easy. But that's no reason to give up. You'll be surprised what you can accomplish if you set your mind to it. After all, you only have one life, so you should try to make the most of it." Stanley tried to figure out what he'd say if Mr. Pendenski asked him what he wanted to do with his life. He used to think he wanted to work for the FBI, but this didn't seem the appropriate place to mention that. So if these boys have all been in trouble and their option was this camp or jail, or they weren't given the option, they were sent to this as juvie, they're probably not a fan of the police, are they? Well, Stanley thinks it's best not to say anything. So far, you've all done a pretty good job at messing up your lives, said Mr. Pendanski. I know you think you're cool, he looked at Stanley. So you're caveman now, huh? You like digging holes, caveman? Stanley didn't know what to say. Well, let me tell you something, caveman. You are here on account of one person. If it wasn't for that person, you wouldn't be here digging holes in the hot sun. You know who that person is? My no good, dirty rotten, pig stealing, great-great-grandfather. Now the other boys howled with laughter. Even Zero smiled. This isn't something that the other boys know, right? They don't know that Stanley thinks his family's cursed. They don't know the story of the great-great-grandfather. It was the first time Stanley had ever seen Zero smile. He usually had such an angry expression on his face. Now, he had such a huge smile it almost seemed too big for his face, like the smile on a jack-o'-lantern. So they compared X-Ray's smile to the smile on a jack-o'-lantern, and they used the word like a jack-o'-lantern, a smile like a jack-o'-lantern. What type of figurative language is that? They made a comparison using like or as. They used like. What type of comparison is that? A simile. Good job. No, said Mr. Pendanski. That person is you, Stanley. You are the reason you are here. You're responsible for yourself. You messed up your life, and it's up to you to fix it. No one else is going to do it for you, for any of you. Mr. Pendanski looked from one boy to another. You're all special in your own way. You've all got something to offer. You have to think about what you want to do, then do it. Even you, Zero, you're not completely worthless. The smile was now gone from Zero's face. What do you want to do with your life? Mr. Pendanski asked him. Zero's mouth was shut tight. As he glared at Mr. Pendanski, his eyes seemed to expand, almost like they were going through Mr. Pendanski. We had it as a vocabulary word. If his eyes were expanding and glaring, like they were seeing right through Mr. Pendanski, his eyes were penetrating. What about it, Zero? Asked Mr. Pendanski. What do you like to do? And Zero says, I like to dig holes. Well, there are some jobs where you have to dig holes in some way or another. So, I don't know. Maybe he could use that. What about you? What do you want to do? For 5 bonus points on your lowest grade, email me. Let me know what you want to do when you grow up. What would your dream job be? Let me know. Send it to me in email, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye, guys.